Caught in the act, John Parsons.
Hi, John. I know I'm about to have a great,
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
and we are on Reading Cable.
All right. So I have it at 7 o'clock. So I'm going to call the meeting to order.
Okay, I'm gonna hit the record button and I will add the captions.
Okay. And
Recording in progress.
right, so the caption's on now, Amy?
They should be on.
Okay. All right, so we do the roll call. Ron Assini,
Here.
Nora Bucco, Mike Colton. Where's Mike? Okay. Mark Doxer,
Here.
John Parsons,
Here.
John Sasso,
Here.
and John O'Neill. Okay, 6 present. And first order would be to acceptance of the minutes of the March 30th meeting. We have a motion.
So moved.
Oh, Jean has
Yeah, just one slight,
seconded first, so, okay, and then it was moved in second. Okay, Jean.
thank you. The very end of the minutes, the last page, it said something about talking about yeah. So the very end on page 6, Jean Delios, if we are going to identify another public forum, we need to decide quickly, optimally, no later this spring. I think it means no later than spring.
Yeah.
Or than this spring or something like that. There's a than or missing.
Okay. Any other additions, corrections, deletions? Seeing none, I'm gonna call the roll with that correction that Jean has submitted. Okay, so Ron Assini,
Present.
Nora?
Present.
No, this is a voting on approving the minutes.
Oh, yes. Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Mark Doxer,
Yes.
John Parsons,
Yes.
John Sasso,
Yes.
and Michael, are you on yet? Okay, so John O'Neill also yes. So the minutes have been approved. And then the next item is development. Well, there's an A and a B, I guess, because we have the linked together, the development of communication plan and review the outreach postcard. John Sasso is to be credited with doing a lot the work. Hopefully people had a chance to look at what he produced. I think in both the postcard and what John produced, I think timelines, we could probably, we'll have to take a look at that, but I think it's the outline of what going into it. So all right, how would people like to proceed? Should we do the postcard first? And to do that, I'm not clear with it all that went back and forth as to, and Jean, hopefully you could enlighten us on this. What's the outside date at which UMass could hold another session?
So I did talk to the team today and we talked about May 18th as a date. I know last time I think we were saying either May 11th or May 18th. I know the ARPA committee is meeting on May 11th. I don't know if that poses an issue. I assume it does because Mark's involved in that. So then I thought May 18th would be an alternate, and they are available May 18th.
And now Marilyn, as far as how that impacts the postcard.
It's iffy. We won't have the list until next Tuesday, and they need, ideally they'd like a week, but I got the printer to say, well, they probably could do the list cleaning in a few days, and then there's the printing, and then there's, usually they don't invoice until they've done the list cleaning and the actual printing. But that adds a couple more days, and they think they probably, although the owner would have to sign off on it, could invoice after the list cleaning and before the printing. And if they do that and the post office gets it out in 3 to 5 days, as opposed to what's often 7 days, we might make it. But that's an awful lot of ifs, frankly. Yeah, and we might be, did you see the second version of the postcard I sent out yesterday? There was an alternative I proposed that we could, instead of focusing on that one date, we could use it as a more informational. If there's a whole series of things coming in May, there's a forum, in whatever month there are focus groups, and in whatever month there's the survey and so forth.
Right, I think problem.
But you may not know those dates yet, so I understand.
Right,
that might not
and I
work.
don't think we're necessarily going to be doing something of significant every month.
Yeah,
So I think
I
we just have the
understand.
dates.
Yeah, it was just a thought that I had about how to share useful information and awareness. I would hate for the postcard to arrive too late for most people to act upon it. We'll just make them angry. It won't help us.
Okay. I'm looking to members. Anybody have comments, suggestions? Mark has his hand up.
Thanks, John. So I'm just wondering, back to that comment about every month and things like that, in reading through kind of the communications plan as well as the postcard, the focus groups we shouldn't be raising awareness of, other than that they're going to take place. We're not recruiting for them. It's not a matter of people signing up for them. It's not a matter, it's not at all like a community forum. It's quite the opposite. The UMass folks, I believe, Gene, are going to reach out, right? They'll identify people through some means. They'll reach out to the specific people, and that's the whole thing. So I don't think we want to raise expectations or create confusion, and I think there's a big risk that we will. So I suggest let's focus more on kind of on the community involvement pieces, which I think really are going to be the forum, if we have the May 18th date established, the survey, which is going to be early September, the presentation of, actually it's early findings, I think would be November, just to be clear on what's going on. And I think that, so first of all, John Sasso, your stuff was awesome. Thank you. Sorry that I'm just getting to it today, but there's some great stuff in there that I think we want to be able to produce, see what can be produced quickly versus what's going to take longer, and then tell people to look for it. Tell them where to look for it, which is now going to be on the town website, and we can tell them the page that it'll be located on and to keep looking for updates. But the idea of having a video tour of the Pleasant Street Center. There are a bunch of other ideas in there also. That kind of information, links to those areas, that would be great. But maybe what we can do here is tell people where to start looking, and then to keep looking, keep coming back. And there'll be updates that take place over time, rather than promising delivery dates that we may or may not be able to achieve. So those are my main thoughts. And then just one hugely important activity on the card, two things. One, if you're going to use the select board email address, it's ci.reading.ma.us. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen except they're all going to bounce back. But more importantly, I think, what are we asking people to say to the select board? So before we get the letter writing campaign going, what would it be that we're hoping to communicate? And is the select board the right place? Or is the recalc the right place? Or is the Council on Aging the right place? Or is it all of the above?
Yeah, we had a question, and actually I think it was on some of my emails, we asked you if that was would be the choice. And it was really just because there wasn't an alternative email. It was the only one that was out there of all those things that actually has a direct email.
No
And
problem. I think we need you to tell people what is it that you're hoping they'll send to the board?
Honestly, that one was Nancy's suggestion and I went with it. And she can't join us tonight, unfortunately, but I think it was just trying to open communication. I don't think it had anything much deeper than that. It was just one more route, you know, someone might not be available to go to a forum or wanting to wait until there's a survey and might have a comment. I think that was as deep as it goes, Mark, honestly.
Got it. So I wonder if it might be better to kind of direct people, first of all, where to look for information.
Yeah.
And then if we're going to give an email address, let's tell people what we'd like them to share in the email. Is it sharing opinions? Is it asking questions? I think it's better to give some guidance as to, you know, what we would hope people would communicate, as opposed to just say, hey, send a letter now. And the select board starts getting all sorts of notes saying, I got the postcard, keep me in the loop.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
what do we want that we aren't going to hopefully achieve through the survey? In other words, we don't want to, you know, ask people specifically as far as, like, for example, well, I'm assuming we don't. We can discuss it, certainly, everything's open here. That would you know, the whole question of would you like to see a senior center or you know, or a community center? Do we want feedback at this point? Or we want to have that all channeled toward the survey?
So one idea that I had, that there's 4 email addresses on the second, the other side of the postcard.
Yeah.
And, you know, one idea is if people want to stay informed about what's going on, they could sign up for the pleasantries right from the website.
Mm-hmm.
And that would plug them in to the newsletter, the monthly newsletter, so that they can stay on top of things related to Pleasant Street Center and other activities. Maybe that's the place to point them to. Or if that's too, you know, they could maybe either sign up from the website or call the Pleasant Street Center if that's for folks who aren't inclined to, you know, mess with the website and all that. If they're more comfortable just calling calling the center, they can call Eileen Mack and she can take it from there and make sure they're getting all the information.
I think those are great ideas. And Amy, I think I see you nodding. Does that make sense to you?
It does make sense. And the girls had said the same thing as well, to have kind of 4 emails. I just think it's a lot because we get people, excuse me, I'm like losing my voice. If someone doesn't get someone, a lot of them will go to the next person and next person, then go to town hall. And with our limited staff, it doesn't make sense. I think I like Jean's idea.
Okay, so I think I'm hearing 2 things. One is on the backside, you'd rather just have the one email and phone number for all the stuff that's on the back and funnel through the receptionist. Is that what you're saying?
I think is that what you had mentioned, Jean? Or
Yeah.
having them somewhere to sign up in the pleasantries?
Yeah. I mean, ideally people would go right to the website and get all the information, but not everybody's comfortable with that. So just call the center to make it easy and the receptionist can guide you.
Okay. Does that make the back better? Amy, I know, I'm sorry you've been out sick. I'm glad to see you're able to come tonight. But does that make the back acceptable to you? We worked with Kevin a lot on making changes, but you didn't have a chance to give input.
He mentioned, yeah, I've actually just came back today, is my 5th day. So I tested positive again for COVID. I'll just tell everyone because that's part of my concern going up.
Yeah.
And, you know, just, I'm wearing a mask all the time now, except now. But I think that'd be great. I think that would be good because
All right.
Eileen's really good about funneling the calls and sending them to who they need to go to.
Okay. Are you comfortable with the scope of information other than the emails and phone numbers that's on the back?
To be honest, I have to look at it again because
right.
I missed so much. We
I
had
understand.
pleasantries and a whole, so
No,
I can look at it
understand.
again.
All right, which is
Okay.
another good reason to take our time a little bit more on this postcard because Amy's been out and didn't have a chance to join us when we met with Kevin. But getting back to the email on the front, that was particularly about recalc, and I don't think we want recalc inquiries going to the Pleasant Street Center as a rule, do we? And we don't have to have the email. It was just, it seemed like it would be in the spirit of the postcard to give people a way to communicate regarding recalc was what the front was about, I think. But we don't have to have an email. I mean, ideally there'd be a recalc email of some sort, but
Okay, what do the recalc members think about that? I'm looking to see if there's any hands.
Ron, I saw
Ron?
it.
Ron, okay. Ron?
I just lost my thought. Come back to me. I just lost my thought.
Okay. The question, by the way, is did we want to have a recalc related email address on the postcard? If that helps at all.
Well, we don't
haven't-
have a
we
email
haven't-
address.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's too many, I think. Should funnel into one area.
But I don't think the select board is the place to funnel all
No.
your questions.
no,
I agree.
it's just the select board happened to have an email. And since the select board created recalc, that was the thinking. Don't look for deep messages here. This is sort of just, okay, that makes sense. Trying it out.
But getting back, where are we as far as tying this in timeline wise to another hearing?
I don't, if you're gonna do it on the 18th, it's really iffy. It might work beautifully and it might be a total bust. They might get the postcards on the 19th.
So we would be more a generic explanation of what recalc is. then.
And where to look for information about it.
Okay,
Perhaps we can have some of those postcards at the meeting as well too. People can fill them out there for additional information.
There's nothing for them to fill out on the postcard. It's
Right.
just, it's just information.
Just information. All right, okay.
It's outreach information about the Pleasant Street Center and what's going on and how to reach it. And on the other side, it's outreach information really about recalc. And we'd hope
Okay.
to have it out in time to be sort of a quasi invitation to come to the forum, or certainly to encourage people. But
Right,
the
right.
timing, who would guess it takes 6 weeks to do a postcard?
but to the
Supply
extent,
chain.
to the extent, Marilyn, that this would help create that buzz that we had talked about for the
Yeah.
survey, it certainly would be helpful.
I think so. And if you give people, to my mind, the town event calendar on the website is a really important place to look. If anyone gets it soon enough, they would see the forum listed if they did that. And I don't know, maybe I don't know. Is there also a recalc website? Will you be posting something on the website about the surveys coming out?
Well, we're going to be getting into that when we
All right.
discuss John's communication plan, I'm sure.
Okay, well then for the moment, I think where things stand is I'll take out I'll reduce the number of contacts on the back for the Pleasant Street Center and for Elder Services to just one, and we'll funnel through the receptionist. Amy, if you over the next day or so could take a look at the back and, please just let us know anything that you'd like to see differently.
Okay, I'm actually looking at it now and I'll definitely get back to you.
That would be really helpful. And for the front, the recalc part, I don't know if any of you saw, I sent out one last night that had a little table of what we're going to do month by month, but it also has several bullets about keep watch on these places. I think I listed pleasantries and newsletters and local papers and a few others. But we'll go more in the spirit of that. I'll take the table out because we're not ready to do something that specific, and we're not inviting people to the focus groups, for example. But maybe expand, and this will help because the front was really pretty crowded. The printer has gotten back to me and said the original version works fine, and if all we're going to do is change a date, but that boat sailed. So
Yeah.
I'll take the table off the version from last night and maybe expand a little bit more about explaining how to keep watch for updates and things. And
Okay, thank you.
I'll send that back to you, Amy, and John Parsons and John O'Neill, and to Kevin and to Nancy. And I think that will cover us on both sides. And if we could get it out, the printer's poised. He'll be ready to receive the list next week. He has done a preliminary run through of what we sent, and he says it's fine design wise, fits on the card and all those good things. So if maybe early next week we could get this finalized, and by then he'll be working on the list. So we really don't lose time on the production. It just lucky if it would make it by the 18th, very lucky. So, okay.
Okay,
Can you add me to that distribution list too,
Yeah,
Marilyn?
yes,
Thank
I,
you.
I forgot, Eugene. I'm sorry. I've
That's
had
okay.
you on, I've had you on them all. I just
That's
forgot to
okay.
mention you. Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
okay. The next is the main item under this particular portion, and that's the development of communication plan. And John Sasso, if you want to take the lead, since you developed an outline for a communication plan.
Sure, but I apologize, John. I just wanted to circle back on the postcard for one more thing. I did have a question and a comment. So I guess two things. One is, Marilyn, if we still wanted at some point to use that card as a communication tool for the forum, or for that matter, a survey, how much time at this point do you feel you would need comfortably to make that date, to make a date?
I would have to look back at the schedule. The way it is right now, the worst case scenario, which unfortunately we should plan for with the post office, wouldn't get it out until the 18th or 19th. And that's assuming that we have the card finalized by, I guess, the time that they start the list, end of this week, beginning of next week, somewhere in there.
So, Jean, I heard you talk about dates for the next forum, for the next community forum, and the 11th is out because of ARPA, but the 18th is an option. What if we pushed it another week to the 25th? Or, I mean, I know that's the week before Labor Day, I mean Memorial Day, but because I do think I think in our conversations, we were hoping that that postcard would serve as another mechanism to communicate to folks that may not necessarily be looking at the website, may not necessarily be reading pleasantries or whatever the case may be, but physically have something show up. So I'll just posit to the team, to the folks here, that I don't know what the availability is of the UMass folks either, but one of the items, especially running into this communication plan, is to try to get some of this stuff out there to folks and in front of them as soon as we can, and also drag them into some of these activities. Otherwise, we're looking at a postcard potentially just as a okay, we have recalc. If you want to learn more about it, go visit the website.
Well, excuse me there, John, but the postcard, the prime force behind this is Council on Aging. So it's not. No, and I also had asked at the beginning to Jean, what was the outside timeline as far as the UMass? And I thought, unless I misunderstood, that Jean had indicated that the 18th was the outside. Jean?
Yeah, we had talked last time about, and when I followed up with UMass, we talked about two dates, May 11th and May 18th. And that's what they have been holding on their calendar. Now, I can certainly go back to them and say, what about June 1st?
Well, I mean, it's certainly up to you guys if we want to try to do that. I think that was the only other option. That was the only other thought I had, is that the goal of that postcard, yes, it is a COA activity, But one of the objectives was also to use it to support kind of, you know, dragging people in to some extent. But, you know,
No,
that's fine.
I had only said that because I thought we didn't have any other choice beyond the 18th. Now, I certainly would advocate as well that if UMass can possibly make it later, and then the postcard would be relevant to generate some, you know, more publicity for that next open meeting, that would be great. So I think,
So the only other thing, you know, the Wednesday before a long weekend, you know, people clear out for Memorial Day weekend, people start clearing out, I think, you know, certainly Wednesdays, Thursdays, they're getting ready to get out of Dodge and start the first weekend of summer.
Yeah.
So my suggestion would be to stay away from that date. That's why we were staying with the 11th and the 18th. But June 1st, you know, I've held meetings the very first few days in June and got public forums, and I've gotten good attendance.
Have we selected a location for the public forum?
We haven't, no, and that's a big question because the library is often booked. So
And so if we do this big outreach and now we have 200 people coming potentially, that'd be a great problem to have, but it's a problem, right?
yeah, yeah, we can certainly get that all worked out long before any postcard goes to print, but
Okay.
there's a lot of moving parts.
all
And
right. So,
Reading just doesn't have the meeting space. We have the library, and that's, you know, you saw it in the public forums. The library is so much better equipped for any kind of public forum than the Pleasant Street Center.
Are the schools used at all? Cafeterias and halls and things like that?
I think we have to pay.
yeah, you do.
Duh.
But that, you know, that wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah, it's okay, but
John, can I chime in on a bunch
Yes,
of this?
please
So,
do.
Yeah, so number one, I would strongly suggest we do talk to the schools about using some of their space. I am not sure as it relates to payment or not, but for an ad hoc committee, my guess is that it would be a small amount of anything. So I certainly think we should ask about that. And that would open up a number of spaces potentially, including the multi-purpose room over at Coolidge as an option, which might be interesting. We've done a lot of meetings at before. So maybe those are possibilities. I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge, Sudeshna Chatterjee is on with us today, who is the new town director of equity and diversity and equity. Did I do it right or did I butcher it?
Equity and social justice.
Equity and
Sorry.
social justice, apologies.
Hi,
She's
everyone.
joining us, and she joined some of the meetings also already, and I think is another advocate in this sphere. So I wanted to make sure she was introduced. Second, come back to Marilyn just for a second. I would imagine that in terms of your timing, the postcard itself is probably 2 days maximum. The timeline issue is probably getting the list clean. I can tell you that I've turned things around with printers, list and card in a week, easily. The issue is how bad is the list? If the list is dirty, that's the problem. I think that's going to be your timing issue, not the card. The card is quick. So that I think we can address that. Next, I wanted to come back to the card. I think the mission of the card has got to be to share information on what's going on. Also give people an option if they do want to sign up. So certainly you can sign up for pleasantries. That's an option.
Yeah.
Do we want to maintain a list of people who say, I'd like to hear what's going on? And there may be people who we can email. There'll be people who can go to the website, and there'll be people who need outreach, a la pleasantries. Or maybe we need to have some kind of a document that's available at the Pleasant Street Center and the library as ideas. But I think this is a chance to get in touch and stay in touch with people. As long as the card's going out, why don't we do that? I think that's much more productive than kind of pushing them to a different location. So sign up. The website, we're talking about the website. So there is the page on Recalc There is what Kevin set up in terms of where all the documents can live. And I can think we could certainly set up as we're developing new information, some information can live there. So it's a good idea to have people check back regularly to see what's there, to see what new information is up. It could also have links to the videos and all sorts of other things potentially that could go there. But I think we want to make sure that that's kind of the way we're communicating with folks. To me, that makes the card really, really valuable in terms of what's going on. And then just one question on the back, as you guys were talking about it, I know we talked about this being potentially, and I may have this backward. Is this meant to go up on people's refrigerator? Or did we say there's already a card that's doing that? That's not our mission.
The card that we talked about no, I can't remember which meeting it was at. My own personal vision was this would go on someone's refrigerator as long as it had a concrete date. But that was just what I had in my head. I don't think we really talked it through.
Okay, so there's, I think we want to make sure that there's stuff that has lasting value. So certainly, here's how you reach the Pleasant Street Center is really important. And then places to get information on what's going on with Recalc, to see the calendar, to see all the other things. If we can guide them in, I think that's perfect. Sorry, I was trying to sneak that in before it didn't sneak it in. Sorry.
If someone could help me in a very concrete, yes, we think that this will please everyone very quickly, actually do the text and whatever concrete links, information, whatever you want on the Recalc, format that would be helpful, because I can take my best guess at it, but we don't have time for a lot of turnaround. Last week I had quite a bit of time to play with this because I was on vacation, but I'm back to work now. So I'm back to my couple hours in the evening here and there. But if there's someone on the Recalc committee that can help me put together what you'd like to see in terms of what you just described, Mark, I think that's a great idea.
So I think we have the page. I think the only issue is figuring out how we want people to sign up. And to kind of, if we're going to create a list of people that.
Could we set up a time to meet with whoever should guide me on this in the next day or so? I guess first we need to know whoever. Then we need to know when they might be available.
So I think the webpage exists. I think you have it on the back already, which is the link to the council page. And I think Recalc comes off the council page. Is that right, Jean? Do I have that right? Yeah, I think that's there. And then it's an issue of us all making sure that page is populated with information. And Kevin already set up the link to the files, for example, the different studies that were going on. I assume that that's where the results of the survey that we do, that Recalc does, as well as the survey that UMass will eventually do, all that stuff will live there. I think that's the place to guide people.
So basically you're saying people should just look for the Recalc website?
I think so. I think yes. And I think it would be great to start gathering a list of people that say, I'm interested. Can you be emailing me information as it's available?
How would we have them tell you that they want to do that?
We need kind of a form there to accept email addresses.
Form where? I think that would be the question. Are we talking about on the town page? Okay.
On the Recalc page, is that what you said, Mark?
I think put it there, put it on the Council on Aging, which is kind of a master page, if you will. I think all the places that, just say, hey, if you're interested and you want to hear, that's a way to do it.
And if we could have the town manager in his next report, which was going to be every other month, if he could, yeah,
sure,
have a link there, because I'm thinking that that's going to become popular. But
I think it's a great idea. And this is another example when we talk about the communication plan. We go through our list. This is option A, this is B, this is C, this is D. The answer is E, all of the above. Right? We're looking for every mechanism to get out to people.
Right.
Just before I forget, I found the flashing sign very helpful on the last one. It was kind of off on the, from the center of town, but it caught my eye right away. And I jumped out and took a picture and sent it to friends and said, look. And so it would have worked for me had I not already known. So if we could for the next forum, try to get at least one flashing sign out. We're not competing with the election on the next time, so maybe there'll be room for a couple of flashing signs, but worked for me. I understand the concept of what's going on the front. I will need somebody to help me draft and then sign off on what I actually would put on the front so that I don't misrepresent or miss an opportunity or whatever. And we do need to have that ready to go within a couple of days. You're right, Mark, it only takes a couple of days for them to make the proof of the card itself, but printing takes 2 to 3 days, and getting a check from the town takes a full week, and mailing it can take up to 7 days. That's where all the stumbling blocks are. The card's the least of the issue.
Exactly, exactly.
So what printer are you working with, Marilyn?
Connolly, the one you recommended.
Oh, because I know when the Board of Health did the postcard, whenever that was, a year and a half ago, it turned around real fast. I don't know.
The holdups are not the printer. The
Yeah,
holdups are the post office, getting the list and getting a check cut.
well, the check shouldn't be a problem.
It's a week. Kevin checked and she said she needed a week. Or he said, whoever he spoke to said it's a week.
And
Sounds
so is
Okay.
the issue on that, Marilyn, the number of people on the list?
Pardon me?
The reason we can't have a precise cost today is we don't know how many people will be on the cleaned up list.
That's right. The printer insists that we'll be wasting money because they won't mail to unmailables and odd things that are on the list. The list is coming from the state. It's not a town list.
Okay, but let's not forget at this point that it's still open. Jean, is your understanding now that you're going to check with UMass to see if that June date is possible?
I already sent them an email.
Okay, and then we would also be in contact with school department?
Yeah, I already emailed out that we're looking at another date and
Okay,
trying to secure a room, see if we could get some folks to help us with that. Yep.
so if we heard back within the next day or so, that would really help Maryland's situation.
Yep.
Because we'd have a
Yeah.
little bit more time, and we definitely then would want to have the date on that postcard.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
And the place and
And
time
the place, and the place. Yes, of course.
and a time.
Yep.
Time is 7 o'clock.
We have an answer. Okay. It's an evening meeting. Okay.
All right.
All right. All I ask is that someone be the contact that's going to let me know all this as soon as you can. And I will need one or more people, whatever Recalc is comfortable with, to sign off on what I write about Recalc.
I will volunteer.
Thank you, John.
Marilyn, okay.
Thank you. I'll email you once I've got this information and it's drafted. I'm not a good proofreader, so believe me, you'll all be grateful for this sign-off step. No matter how many times I proofread, I miss things. So, all right, I'll work with you, Joan, and we'll get the front crafted and corrected and all the rest.
And as soon as I hear back, I'll let you know on the possibility of June 1st.
Perfect. And I don't see any reason why June 1st would be any problem, since, in the worst of all scenarios that I currently have for this, it would be delivered by the 19th. So that's plenty of time. We just need to get the information so I can put it on the card and send it to the printer so they can edit. And Amy, if in the next day or so you could give me your feedback on the back, and I can help with that. And then if I can ask you to sign off on that once I've made those changes as well.
I can sign off on tomorrow, Marilyn. We have
Great.
a couple of short staffed, and I have to finish the pleasantries because I missed a week. So
Yeah, no, I understand totally. I'm just looking for someone I can turn to that will be available at that point to, make it a priority as much as they can. And I totally understand,
Yes.
Amy. And I
Yeah,
appreciate what
thank
you're
you.
doing.
Thank you.
Excuse me, John, Ron has his hand up. I have a
Okay.
giant screen. I can see everybody who has their hand up.
Okay, I don't. All right, Ron.
No, actually, that was an old one. I was going to ask, do we have the capability to have people opt in for email? That was going to be my question, Mark, and I think you said that. So where do you go if you want to find out more information? Can you opt in for an email? And then as we send out information as part of John's communication plan, we could send out things to people in email. I know I get stuff from other board groups that somehow I got an email on an email list somehow. So how is that being done? And does the town have the capability to capture those email addresses?
I can probably ask someone in IT. Because I
Kevin
know
Perla.
when is that I can do that tomorrow. I think they're going to be over early tomorrow because we're supposed to be showing a movie and the projector's not working. So never know. So I think they're going to be coming over first thing tomorrow morning, and I can let you guys know.
That'd be great.
All right. So now,
Okay.
John Sasso, if you would be so good as to lead us in discussion of the proposed communication plan. And thank you once again for doing the work to.
No worries. So can everybody see my screen? Okay, cool. So I guess I'll just start by saying no pride of authorship here. So all comments, criticisms, suggestions, changes are welcome. Really, what I'm trying, the page I'm showing you here really is the key to this. Is one of the keys. I think we've identified a few other things that we can use as strategies to support this. But what I was trying to do was come up with a list of activities that we can use as steps in communication. That was my intention. And so we kind of talked a little bit last time about some of these. I did also take an action to try to create an initial newsletter, quote unquote newsletter. I think that was sent out as well. It ended up being more of a summary of the select board presentation, but I still think it was of value. And again, so my thought was that, looking at this is to come up with, tangible actions that we can use as means to communicate. And then what is each one? I added on the postcard potential on here because we did talk about it. I realized that, these are potentially COA versus recalc, but I still think it was important to include those on here. So really the question just is, does this kind of make sense? Is this kind of the milestones, if you will, in the project that we would want to use as means to communicate? Are these the right tools in each of these cases? And who, and then for each of these, go to that next level of who's responsible and how do we get this done? Again, and then the question then becomes, okay, how do we communicate? How do we get it out? So, anytime we have an approach like a newsletter or a video, the video gets posted on the website, the newsletters get posted and potentially printed out copies in the library and in the senior center and emailed out to, whatever lists we may have, including potentially those that get into an opt-in list. So that was my intention, was to try to lay something out for folks to review. And I know most of you probably didn't get a chance to go through this because it just came out today. But if anybody has any specific feedback, I think this is really the crux of the plan in my mind.
Just one additional thing, Linda, when you have the video tour, John.
Yep.
I think it would be helpful if they have a second video of scenes from some of the senior centers in other communities that were visited, so people can see what's possible, so that, because right now, seeing this, it's important for them to see what we have as a facility, but to get a better understanding of what that means, because are we going to see it overcrowded? Probably not. Just during these times, it's so physically to be able to see it in that's one thing. But like I said, I think it'd be good if we just put together a collage or whatever of what's going on in, the peer communities like you have there.
Can I add to that? I want to build on that. I think that's a great idea. Remember too, that we are building this giant Google Doc of the 23 centers roughly that we'll have visited, with a consistent format, as well as in many cases, some photographs. We may want to think about how to organize that in some way, to make it a kind of a usable library, if you will, of the forms with pictures. So I don't know if we're going to be able to video other sites or not, if that's going to fit, or maybe we can, but we'll have built this database already of different centers that we'll have visited. That would be great to make available in some way, shape, or form. So I think it's an awesome idea.
Yeah, I mean, at least from what I've seen thus far, there are pictures that are being collected by folks as they go out to visit these centers. We also get the data. I think it wouldn't be another bad idea to actually show some comparative information. I think that, we can make it more than just the images and pictures, but also some details. So yeah, that's a good one. Any other?
See, that was something that I was going to raise a little bit later, but now since it's, Mark brought it up, it's going to be difficult, but I think important to do. How do we synthesize the information that we gathered in a way that's going to be impactful, and yet it's not going to be so complex that people are going to throw up their hands? In other words, when I saw there was 95 pages to the
Lexington,
right, that was sent out, and I started reading the reports from different centers. Then after 3 or 4, I said, "Oh my God, I can't do this now." I did finally go back and finish looking through it, but I realized I won't remember, the ones I saw earlier, except some egregious things. Like I know what jumped out at me, they had Winchester as only having 4,000 square feet, but holding 400 people in one room and 200 in another room. So I said, well, obviously 4,000 square feet is not correct. And maybe it was 40, I don't know. But anyway.
So I think it's important to understand, and I'm just to be clear, this plan doesn't necessarily solve the problem or the question of how does one generate these particular pieces of information. What goes in what, how do you synthesize it. Again, I took the first stab at what perhaps could be the first one, but that was my selection of information. I think you're right. Every one of these requires a bit of planning. I mean, even for example, I mean, again, I can tell you from the perspective of putting videos together, I'm not the expert. I have done some video stuff for my work, and my son is an expert at this stuff. But anytime you put this stuff together, you kind of have to develop a little storyboard and a little, descriptive of the content and what you want to show. And so each one of these is its own set of activities in terms of putting these things together. And without a doubt, we're going to end up with probably a couple hundred pages worth of information from these peer community surveys. And we're going to need to figure out how to collate it, synthesize it, to use your word, and present it. So
that wasn't a criticism, but at all as far as format of what you have here, John. In fact, that's why I said that I wasn't even going to raise it in the context of this discussion. But since Mark had brought it up, I was just kind of like, before I lose the thought, because I'm at that age, sometimes if I don't bring it up when I have it, it might be lost. So that's all. That.
Yep, so that's good.
Totally correct. Every one of these is going to take a plan, and people committed to working on developing that plan. And putting it forward.
Are there other items that are missing, or are there things on this list that you think we don't need, or perhaps other methods that we want to incorporate? Again, this is kind of, folks, if you've had an opportunity to look at this, we can certainly, this can be a living plan. We don't have to finalize it today. We can say, okay, this is good for today. And then as we move through the process and decide, hey, we think we need something else, we can certainly add it. So Marilyn, you had your hand up. You can.
Okay.
It's just a question, really. I see there'll be the link to the survey. Is there a decision? I say we, but it's not my decision. Have you made a decision that the survey is going to be strictly an online survey?
I'd refer to John. I don't think we've made any decisions on
Oh.
the specifics of the survey at this point.
Okay.
So
I just saw an announcement of the survey, including its links. So
yeah,
I didn't see mention of the mailing.
Yep.
And before I go back on mute, I stumbled upon, I know UMass had said that it would be a tremendous plus to their workload if they did have to handle a large number of paper surveys, but if they use something that can be read with an optical scanner that makes any multiple choice thing a piece of cake, which I think everyone's probably familiar with. I mean, we all vote that way among a million other things, but there also is very inexpensive software that converts text if they've got open-ended questions to written, something in a Word document or whatever, readable text as opposed to handwritten scrawl on a survey that I actually saw this demonstrated probably 15 years ago, and it was incredibly accurate. And I can only imagine that the technology's done nothing but improve, but it can just read it automatically. It doesn't require someone transcribing whatever people have written. So I would just offer that advice. And it was cheap software. The one I happened to see was like $150 a month. I mean, it wasn't much. So if it's possible to do large scale paper surveys, I think that will get back to our original impression of what we would do with this and deal with the multiple adults in the household.
Even though we didn't make a final decision, I think there wasn't much support for a wide scale, or I shouldn't say support, that I don't think people saw the necessity of that there was going to be a wide scale paper. But that
I just
it
don't
would
know.
be an option. It would be definitely would be an option. We didn't but I think that more people than you might imagine are going to be able to fill out online the survey or with assistance when needed. But
you might be right, John. It's just originally we talked about it being paper, and I don't want to derail our discussion of this plan. It's a side point completely. But Jean had mentioned that every time that we do one of the things that it's a link, she gets phone calls. And Jean, if I'm misquoting you, please correct me. But you said you've gotten lots of pushback in the past that we don't want this, scanning a code and things like that. They want paper surveys. So, and I just don't know how you know who those people are.
okay, John. John said, so I see Mark had his hand up. Then there was Tom Marty.
Tom and Jean have their hands up. So Tom, you want to go ahead?
All right, just as long as you see them. Okay.
Yep. Tom. Tom, did you had your hand up? Do you want to add something?
Yeah, I forgot to unmute myself. I apologize.
Oh, go right ahead.
There's a lot of puzzle parts on the table and a lot of moving pieces. And so what I'm about to say might seem to be a little bit of a ripple in the plan, but given that this communication plan came up, perhaps this was the right place to raise this, and I'll try and be brief. I've done quite a bit of thinking, and I've done a lot of work over the last decade relating to the aging population and bringing people together in various kinds of forums, workshops and programs and so forth. And I have had discussions already with Marilyn, with Jean, and with Mark, and with Nora, and with Mike Coltman, and a variety of other people in town. And basically the idea harkens back to 2008, when there was a quite large World Community Cafe event held at the Field House, where there were about over 200 people, I believe. And the World Cafe is a methodology which probably most of you are familiar with, gathering people at small tables, 5 or 6 people, to discuss issues with somebody to record notes and so forth. And there's a variety of ways of doing this. In fact, it can also be done online. But when you do it online, that restricts those who are able to participate to those who are comfortable being online and participating in that kind of thing. So I've given that some thought as well, in terms of actual events where you could bring people together, similar to the last World Cafe, which was done at the library in, I think, 2017, where you could bring anywhere between 50 and maybe 100 or more people together. And when I looked across the town, there are, I think, 5 different venues that could accommodate those kinds of meetings. And then there are several private venues. I belong to the Unitarian Church, and our fellowship hall has been used by the community in a number of cases, and that will accommodate up to 200 people. And I've talked with Julie Thurlow about the Walker Street building, which I was a part of when I was at Task. And that has a cafeteria and a large conference room on the base floor. So again, lots of details. And let me leave it at that. And it would be basically focused on 2 things. One, raising the profile of Recalc, engaging the community much more broadly because of what would have to be done to have these meetings either online or in person over the summer. The online ones not the online ones, but the in-person ones over the summer. And I've talked with Caitlin Coyle this afternoon about this, and she was fairly positive and enthusiastic about the input it could provide to the UMass survey that they were developing. As I say, lots of moving parts. I've dealt with a lot of them. Jean knows some of the details. Mark knows the details. Nora knows the details. Marilyn a little bit. And if this is an idea that's worth exploring, and that's purely what it is at this point, I would like to propose that Recalc consider forming a task force that would take a look at the ideas over the next couple of weeks, come back with a recommendation, see what could be done, and this whole thing probably could be launched by the end of May. With that, I'll leave it. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Jean still has her hand up. Jean, are you responsive? Responding to Tom?
Jean, I think you muted.
Sorry, I'm hitting wrong buttons left and right here, so bear with me. No, I had raised my hand for a couple of things. Yeah, Tom and I have been in discussion. I don't know the mechanics of a task force and if it's separate from Recalc or a subset of Recalc. We have to figure out all those parts, but I think collaborating with any and all groups, like we've been collaborating with the Council on Aging all along, is only going to add to the ability to bring people together. So I'm very positive on this idea. I don't want to get bogged down in the details of how you do it, but yeah, I think it's a great idea. And you know, the toughest part of this effort is reaching the people that we're trying to reach and getting the community to think about this and provide feedback. That's the whole point of community engagement, is to get this feedback from a variety of places and a variety of people in the community. And that's hard work because it's just an idea at this point. It's nothing that people can really get their head around in terms of what we're talking about. So whatever we can do to engage more and get more feedback, I think is great. And I'm happy to do whatever I can to help that effort. in terms of the survey, the one point I wanted to make is when I was speaking with the UMass team, they wanted to pin down a date, and if this isn't the time, we can do it later in the meeting, but I want to make sure before we don't get too far off that we can focus on a dedicated recalc meeting date for reviewing the survey and going through kind of the pieces of the survey. And to Marilyn's point earlier about how do you get the people that are not going to go online and take a survey, UMass did say there is a phone number that they would provide, like a phone bank, and people could give their responses over the phone. So that's another option.
If I could offer two comments per what Jean just said very briefly. In terms of the actual bringing people together, I'm a member and I was one of the founders of Reading Neighbors Network. We have about 100 members, and I did a plot of where the members are, and there are at least between 5 and 15 members of Reading Neighbors Network in every one of the 8 precincts. And many of them have already expressed an interest in this and asked that I publish something in the newsletter about keeping them abreast of recalc. So if we were to be able to develop a plan that would be implemented in the June, July timeframe to bring people together locally in their neighborhoods, that would be one thing. The other thing with the online survey, that could be done fairly quickly. And my hope, not to be grandiose or overly optimistic about it, but it would seem to me, I've done a lot of these things nationally and internationally, that you could bring together 1,000 or 1,500 people on an online type form fairly easily. And I would hope that you would get at least that many if you could reach each of the 8 precincts with local events. Thank you.
All right, Mark.
Thanks, John. So thanks, Tom, for bringing this up. Thanks, Jean, for kind of sharing some information on it also. I think that it's really interesting for a few reasons, and then I'm going to bring it back to this calendar. I think Tom mentioned there's kind of both an input side to this as well as an output side. So the input is getting more people involved in a meaningful discussion, as opposed to kind of just a more of a monologue about, here are my concerns. This actually can kind of create that kind of very productive input. The output side is very much part of this communications plan. It's something else to talk about. And one of the gaps that we have, and one of the things I was going to suggest, John, as you're thinking about the timeline also, obviously we'll start filling things in as we know when we can accomplish them. We've all been concerned that the summer is going to be very quiet. So we'll have done some activities in April, we'll have done a few activities perhaps in May or early June, depending on the timing here. And then it's like there's very little happening until the survey in September. And maybe this World Cafe idea is something that could be taking place over the summer. And with the opportunity for it to be virtual, for some folks that are away at summer homes or whatever activities are going on, maybe there's still the chance that they'll engage because they don't have to physically be in town. And so I'm just wondering if so it's both kind of where it fits in the communication plan, and I think this notion of what can we share during the summer that will keep people engaged. That's how I think it fits. Thanks.
So let me just give a couple of comments back to you, Mark, on that. So one of the things that I was hoping, again, today was, at least for the first few of these, if we kind of agree these make sense, I would like to put some names and dates next to each of these if possible. I think, that's the first step. Just in terms of the question of summer, we obviously have had that conversation about what we think will happen, that things will kind of slow down, which is why we didn't really plan a whole lot at the moment. I certainly was hoping that, once we finish the community forums and focus groups, that we would have the opportunity to kind of collect up that information and distill it, and, I'll use John's word, synthesize it and put it together in a communication that we could share kind of, early summer. And then towards the mid to end of the summer, we have the survey announcement prep and the actual, because I think we were thinking kind of like, right after Labor Day, first week in September, kind of kicking this thing off. So providing communication, kind of reestablishing that connection with the community and letting them know, okay, it's coming. You're going to see it after the day after Labor Day or whatever the timing would be, as the way to initiate that. So yes, there'd probably be a little bit of a lull in my mind, and certainly if there are other activities that folks want to generate, we as a committee haven't discussed that in particular, and I'm not suggesting we do that as part of the communication plan, but by all means, if there are things that we then come up and decide to do, we can certainly add them to this list. So that's that in my mind makes sense. So again, John O'Neill, getting back to this, my question just is, do we as a committee at least agree in principle that this kind of makes sense? This is kind of an approach that we want. We did add a couple of things, some items in here, and if we do, can we actually generate some actions and people and dates that we can start to work on? I'd like to. I mean, I think this one here, the postcard that Marilyn and the COA are working on, I kind of thought that was this line item, quite frankly. So if that's still, that seems like it's already kind of in process. I kind of put myself out there for the first one with a draft that, by all means, if folks have feedback on that, we can work on it. But then I think that kind of leaves these next two, which, this first one, the Pleasant Street Center video tour. I mean, there's no reason why that can't get started kind of right away. It's just a matter of identifying somebody to be responsible and figuring out how to do that. In terms of the peer community information, I think, John, you're right. We need to have a discussion about that, maybe separately as recalc, to figure out what we want that to look like, what things we are, in fact, that we want to highlight, and then, identify an action, someone to start working through that, and being able to then put that into a presentation / video or whatever it is that we can then use as a communication tool. So these are the ones that I think are kind of, these first four are the ones that are in play at the moment. The other ones, until we get feedback, until I mean, I'm assuming UMass is going to give us, their readouts from the forums and the focus groups. And so once we get that, we can then, massage that into another newsletter, towards the beginning of the summer, I would suspect.
That was a question I had. How frequently do you see the newsletters coming out?
Well, so I was thinking this one end of April. I mean, this is now, right?
Mhm.
This one, this is, it's going to take a while to put this together. So just being realistic, let's say mid-May. The peer community one, end of May, mid-June. I don't know. This one, the postcard is actually in process now. So, this will be in April. And then this one here, I was thinking, depending on when we get information from, if we don't hold the last focus group or the forum till the first week in June, this is an end of June timeframe, early July. So, I mean, again, this is just my thoughts, comments, suggestions, timing wise. What do people think about that?
Looking to see what hands might be up. Don't see any unless I'm missing any. I think people are hesitant because maybe they'll be asked to do something, John.
Well, like I said, I've already taken a stab at this one, so I created it, and I'm certainly open to suggestions, and if we like it, then we can PDF it and put it on the website and print out some copies to put out at the library and at the senior center, and then send it out via email on whatever distribution lists we can. I think this one, this is already Maryland. So I guess the question is, we seem to like the idea of doing a video tour. What do people think? Who, where does that fall? I don't think it's necessarily, I put elder services, it's not really a recalc issue, but.
So I do have a question on the video, if you
Sure.
don't mind. So we talked about potentially running something on RCTV as well too, maybe a video.
Right, whatever was developed would also go on RCTV.
Okay. The other thing is there is a family day coming up, June 11th.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity to get a booth or a sponsorship there where you can get, where more people can come up and that you have a more diverse group coming up potentially to come talk to us? That's June
I think we
11th.
had talked about, yeah, I think we had talked about that before. I think we either have the booth or are getting the booth. And I'm just trying to find someone who'd be able to staff it and volunteers. But that's a great idea.
So Amy, we talked about it at Council on
Oh.
Aging as a possibility. But I think
Oh,
what
yes,
Ron is talking
okay.
about is, yeah, maybe there's a recalc too.
If I could
Oh,
chime in
okay.
if I could chime in for a second, Kevin Bowmiller already has a booth. And if we don't get one on our own, he said we could piggyback with him.
Awesome.
And if I could just make one more comment on the communication schedule, the postcards, John Parsons is working with me, as is Nancy Zimlak on the postcards.
Okay, just to clarify, because it is apropos of what we're discussing here, is that Tom raised the thing about the World Cafe almost seeming like it was going to be an alternative or instead of the, another community forum UMass. And then I think what Mark suggested is that the World Cafe could be later and we could still have another community forum. Is that? Okay.
No, if I may correct, not instead of, in parallel with, this would all be in parallel.
Okay. No, I just wanted to be clear because that hadn't been, we didn't formally take any, action on that. And it was kind of like, leave it. I didn't want it just being hanging out there and not wanting you to think that we weren't addressing it. Okay. It's just that right now we're on this communication thing, and communication would be added to by the World Cafe. Now, John Sasso, do you see that would be appropriate to come within the framework of what you've developed here?
If I may comment, before it could be put on this list, I would hope that if you feel it's worth exploring, that we could form this task force and within a couple of weeks determine the feasibility, because there's quite a bit of work to be done. I've talked with Deb Gilberg, who was the principal leader of the 2008 one, and she said it could be done. It would require a lot of work, but we do have a lot of people, as I say, who are very interested in helping, and a lot of them are very capable and experienced in related areas.
I'm still finding no direction on how to proceed on that.
So John, I'm sorry, let me just make a comment just as it relates to this.
Okay.
We can certainly add, communication points at any time, that we feel it's appropriate. And I'm, I'm not being critical of the idea. I'm just saying at this point, it isn't something that's been in our plan. And so as a result, I don't have anything on here that I could point to that says, okay, this is what it's going to be, and we need to now add this as a line item here. I guess I would posit to the group that, to Tom's point, that this is something that requires a lot more discussion and details and understanding before we we as a group would want to kind of sign ourselves up to going down that path. Again, I'm not suggesting it's good or bad. I'm just saying that from a recalc perspective, this is the first time we've been talking about it. So my objective with the communication plan, again, was just to identify places and times and people and activities that we can use as our mechanisms to communicate with the community. And if in fact we did move down the path of supporting that sort of a communication with the community, then by all means, I think we would absolutely want to find some points in here to add to that. I just don't know what those are at this point, so I'm not suggesting that I add that in here until we have an opportunity to do a little bit more detail on it.
I'm 100% in agreement with it's far too premature. There's a lot of questions that have to be answered first. It's a question of resources. Can they be put together in the appropriate time? And that is an unanswered question at this point. I think it can be done, but I'm not willing to say, yes, it can be done.
Okay, so we have Nora and Mark with their hands up. Okay, so
You're on mute, Nora.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tom's ideas is a great way to get more in-depth, intimate results, and engagement, I think, is critical. And so I would support that. I mean, I'm willing to be on a task force to get it rolling or initiated or whatever we need to just sort of discover what it's all about. I also am looking at the video. I mean, I would love to put my name next to a video. I've never made a video in my life. I wouldn't even know how to, I mean, I'm looking at RCTV and I appreciate all their work. So, I mean, I don't think I can support,
I think we have John's son ready to find up, don't we, John?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. I was saying that he's done a lot of it actually. In fact, he just did one for children's the other couple weeks ago, which came out amazing. But I think this is something that especially if we're going to use it as Pleasant Street information, even in the interim, I think the Elder Services needs to give us guidance on what it is they want, what it's going to look like, what are the things they want to highlight and showcase. I mean, so this is, I just want to be clear, this is a project. This is a pretty involved project. I do not want to minimize how much effort it could necessarily be put into it. And it probably would need a couple folks, quite frankly, to kind of spend some time putting together, like I said, the outline and the pieces of it. I think it's an awesome idea. I really love the idea. I wouldn't even put my name next to it because I know how much work it is.
Yeah, and like you, John, I've done a lot of videos for corporate events as well too, and it is a production. And maybe this is something that we can get high school students to potentially participate.
Well, either that or RCTV has volunteers.
Yeah.
That may, but Mark has his hand up. I'm sorry, Mark.
So can I suggest two things? One, let's kind of finish up on the World Cafe concept first. I think that it's great. Nora already put her hand up, which is awesome. But maybe if there were maybe one other person that might be interested in pursuing that and working a little bit with Tom, who's already started some of the groundwork on this, and then come back to the group with some more thoughts on how it might get organized. I think that would be great. I think we stay clear of the subcommittee idea. And rather just ask a couple of members to work on it. It's way below quorum, so it shouldn't trigger any public meeting sorts of activities, and to report back to the group with thoughts, maybe even next steps. I think that one would be great. And then I think everything that you've spoken about in the video is spot on. I think it's worth talking with Phil over at RCTV. I just got a notice that there are classes and things over the summer, which might mean that there's a project potential over the summer from RCTV. And then let's talk to the schools as well and ask if that's something that they're thinking in terms of either a summer program or an existing course or something like that, if there might be some resources that would like to engage, or even the National Honor Society might be another possible group of folks that might be willing to engage a bit more in this.
All right, so how do we follow up on that? Because I don't want to just leave that.
So I'm meeting with the superintendent later this week. I'll ask him who the right person would be to talk to from the high school side.
Okay. Amy, you have your hand up?
I was gonna say, I would offer to do something for this, because I know it is for elder services, but once we get that senior coordinator position, it's just been really, really busy, and we just haven't had any time. So we do have some volunteer applications. I was gonna say, there are some students, I could even go through and see if they have any experience on that. And also I had a couple of, my neighbor who is going to be a senior, and when you said Reading High School, they have to do projects. And I know that she does videos and websites, and, I think sleeps with the phone. She is so good. So that might be a possibility too, because a lot of the kids want hours and need hours like ASAP.
See, I'm realizing we may have different ideas on what outcome we're looking for here. Because this is not your typical video where you're trying to, for public relations, to show, how wonderful things are and please come. We're looking at the physical state and how that impacts the ability to program. And particularly, quite honestly, everybody's sees, certainly in the Council on Aging is indicated, and anyone who's been down to the site, UMass, forget about anything else. So the Council on Aging and UMass are in a study in 2017 says it doesn't work any longer. It's a nice building, historic, but it doesn't work to meet the needs today. So I think the video should be along those lines, unless I'm missing something. So I don't see it as that great an undertaking in that regard.
So John, I think you raise a good point. There is a question that I don't think I fully answered in this. I maybe in my mind, I was thinking the video would kind of serve two purposes. One being that showing the community what is actually at the center today, and why not use it as an opportunity to share some of the things that are in fact going on. And then also, though, to highlight some of the issues and deficiencies that we are trying to address. I don't know if that in and of itself is too big of a bite to take. But I guess I was thinking that, if we could address both of those, there's not, we don't have a lot of things to show. The senior center is not, unfortunately, there's very few, areas to actually walk through. So I think there's an opportunity to kind of address, both at some level. And still, again, you've got this for now and you want folks to know what it is, but through that also highlight some of the things that we are trying to address. That's just my only thought. And that's why I said you need to sit down and really work through this to figure out what is feasible and what makes sense from looking at that. So I definitely think, I didn't want to volunteer you, Amy, but without a doubt, I think you have to be intimately involved in this particular thing because it is really reflective of what Elder Services is providing and what the center really looks like today.
Yeah, you could totally volunteer me. I don't mind. I'll volunteer myself. As long as, the timeline, we can make it work, something. Because even today we could show, we had new people come in and they could tell right away that, someone heard through the grapevine that we were in the process. They heard the buzz about recalc and that we were in the process. So I quickly gave them the elevator speech. And, she said, I love this building, but it is, it's like we're literally staging people from the kitchen to waiting for this to end. So it is something we could do. And I could even ask my team, for ideas on how to do it too, especially the ones who have been there for a long time. So we can do something.
Nora, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's sort of a strange, because you want to present the negative, but you also, there's a lot of people out there that have never ever been to the senior center, and they have no idea of that there are issues in that building. So I think it's educational, just because people that may be filling out the survey may never have gone there, and I think they need to see what's the current. But on the other hand, it has to highlight, and I think it's sort of obvious when you take a photo in the room and you see people sitting around. There's just not enough space.
Probably have to have some interviews with people too. That would be.
That would be, yeah, exactly, exactly.
So,
But yeah, so it's sort of a complex video.
So it's back to what you, yeah, okay.
yeah, I'm not suggesting we solve this tonight. I'm just suggesting we identify at least someone to take, I guess, to
Sure.
take the lead, to be responsible. And that doesn't mean they're doing all the work, but it does mean that they, kind of push through, okay, let me make sure, who do I need to talk to? Do we have volunteers? Who's going to work on an outline? What is it going to look like? We need somebody to take that role for this particular action, for all of these actions, quite frankly. So that's my only point here, is that, and I don't necessarily want to, for that particular thing, I'm not sure I'm asking Amy to be the person for that. I think someone, if it is within the purview of Recalc, I think we should have a Recalc member identified as a resource here to kind of work that. Go ahead, Amy, you had your hand raised as
All right,
well.
and when would we need to have this done by? I'm just trying to think of.
Well, I mean, I think the schedule is going to be contingent upon what it really looks like, and I think until people really get down, I mean, I've laid out a tentative timeline only just to give folks the idea of where we think things would be good to fit in. But I mean, a video like this could take 2 weeks, it'd take 4 weeks, it'd take 3 months. I mean, who knows? Really depends on how much you want to bite off and what it wants to look like. I'm certainly not, I mean, I would certainly not be suggesting making it a very long video, because I don't think people will sit and watch it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think you have to be really careful. But I mean, I think, between now and mid to late May, that's 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, I think you should be able to at least put something together. And if it's still not final and you want to clean it up after that, I think that's fine. I don't think anybody's really at the position where we want to, say we have to have it by the 12th of May. I don't think we're saying that at the moment.
Okay. I'm sending out the pleasantries tomorrow, and we added 6 events in May. So I just want to be realistic. I don't want to commit, but
Well, that's actually a good time to video with the 6 events.
Exactly.
Right.
I can put myself as the lead, like definitely do something, capture, even today I said to the nurse, it was just her and I, and I said, wow, I wish we had a video of it. I wish we had something. Like, we always kind of joke around, because then people will come, but it's in between classes and it seems like it's quiet, but that would be great to capture it. Many opportunities. So you can put me down as the contact person, John, if you want to.
Okay.
And I have witnesses, so I can't back out.
John, I'm going to leave this. This is the one that we talk about synthesizing information that comes out of the peer community reviews. I'll leave that for the moment, but I think we do want to maybe talk about that. We probably want to talk about that in its own kind of topic, about what that looks like, and then from there determine what we can make that into and who can help be responsible for that.
So I was wondering if, not on the pictures and images, but on the synthesizing of the information, whether UMass could be helpful. Gene, what do you think?
I thought I heard that someone was going to take this information and put it into some sort of a database, or did I misread that from the discussions we were having? I don't know if that was Kevin or
Someone
Jean
said
had
Google
mentioned.
Docs. I don't know what that was about. Google Docs.
Yeah, I don't think UMass would be the right resource to do this, but I think that, you know, we have staff and um, depending on what the expectation is of the committee, you know, like to Amy's point, she's understaffed at the center and she's running around doing staff level work because she has this vacancy. So we're kind of all in the same boat as far as, you know, I'm a department head, I'm the assistant town manager, but I'm a working department head like all my fellow department heads. So i- i- we don't have a lot of capacity, but if it's a simple thing, then yeah, there's no problem.
John, I just suggest we leave this open for now and,
Okay.
until we get the rest of the surveys. And I was actually doing a list. We've got about 14, 15 centers actually done at this point, at least based on what I saw in the most recent download. So we're getting close to having a good cadre of information to review.
And by the way, what probably when we say here, it wouldn't necessarily be a video as much as a slideshow. You know, a
Yeah,
video, you know,
Yep. Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Because we're not talking about, you know, taking the film crew and revisiting all these things. It's
Yep.
taking, we already had, similar to what Kevin had done.
Yeah. So, so John, I'm sorry. I know I've taken up a lot of time. I think this is kind of done. I will save this and I'll send it back out. And then I'd like to recommend that we use this as just a check-in, and we can certainly keep it up to date. If folks, Gene, I don't know if this is something that would warrant going on the website as well, but certainly you guys could do that. The only suggestion I would make is PDF it before you put it on the website. But other than that, I'll keep it up to date and then we can check in and keep moving. And as far as the first one I created, I obviously that just went out to people today. I know we have to be careful about quorum stuff, but if people, I'm going to ask this question again, and I know it's been answered before perhaps, but if people have comments or feedback on that, what should we do? Can they send it back to me and then I can make updates and then send it to you guys to PDF and
No, the safest thing is to have it either go to Kevin or to me, you know,
Okay.
somebody on staff, if anybody has comments, and then we can push it out.
Okay. All right. So then I would say, John O'Neill, just as an action, if we can add that if folks have comments on that first quote unquote newsletter there, please send them to Gene and Kevin. And then if folks can do that by the end of this week, then that can get posted as a first newsletter, and then we can figure out where to email it. We'll have to come up with a plan for that.
John, can I recommend you either put version numbers or dated numbers or something like that? Each one.
I put newsletter number 1 on it.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
That's I guess.
And I don't think we want to have this chart go.
No, this is
this is a work in progress.
No, this is the communication plan. I'm not I'm sorry. Let me just see. I think folks had seen this.
As you're finding that, John, can I just reiterate, make sure that it says only to send it to Kevin and Jean and not anybody else.
Okay.
So this again, I took a simple Word template. But again, a lot of this came from the work that Mark and John did for the select board presentation. We just tried to kind of reiterate some of the history, why recalc, some of our activities, and then our approach and kind of next steps. And then I pointed them to the website. I mean, it's just very simple. I just think we need to get something out there and start this process. So by all means, it was not intended to be more than a one-pager. It really was intended to be something short and sweet, and just to start the process of communication. So yeah, to Mark's point, send any feedback you have on this to Kevin and Jean directly, And then if everybody's okay with this, I would say PDF it. Let's get it on the website and let's get it out to folks.
And once again, thank you, John Sasso.
All right, I'm done. I'll turn this back over to you, John. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now I don't want to forget now the World Cafe. We have Nora as a volunteer to work with Tom. Do we have anybody else? I can always volunteer Mike since he's not here.
I would like to volunteer. It's
Ron
fine.
Athene. Okay, great. Thanks, Ron. And
So can I reach out to Tom and to Nora without violating anything? Okay.
yes, because it's just two members of the committee.
Okay.
So there's no open meeting problem there. Okay.
John, I think Marilyn has had her hand up.
Okay, Marilyn.
Thank you, Amy. It's nice to know someone sees you in the forest. Just a comment on the video. I've done some work in video, and a technique, especially when time is short, that can be helpful is if you just first start by making a list of the points, just writing like bullet points. Here are the points we want to make. And if you've got talent, which it sounds like you probably do know someone who's a great videographer and could do it for you, but if you're short on time, something that can work effectively is just take snapshots that go with the words, so that you're sort of setting the stage rather than showing a movie about an event. You're just setting the stage in their mind of, this is what an event looks like, but they're focusing on the words. And you can put that, string that together in a video. The Ken Burns things, most of what he does actually, because he can't take live video of the Civil War, it's photographs and he talks over it. It's the narration that puts the photographs together. And it can be assembled a lot more quickly sometimes. It depends. If you've got a really skilled videographer, you're golden anyway, but just a thought.
All right. Anybody else's hand that I missed or can't see offhand? All right. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, potential funding sources for feasibility study. And Mark, you're the one who had raised this at the last meeting.
So this relates to kind of what timing are we hoping to achieve and what happens at November town meeting. And I think initially, I think at least I had in mind that perhaps we'd be ready with survey results and recommendations for November town meeting. And I think we've agreed that that's overly ambitious, given kind of where we are on things. So one of the thoughts was, how might we fund a feasibility study? And is a feasibility study the likely next step that would come from our work here? So I think the answer is yes, that is the likely next step of what should come from our work here. And a feasibility study meaning to kind of take the recommendations of the group and to bring that together, to come back to recalc, come back to the select board, and probably come back to town meeting with possible options on how to achieve those outcomes. And those possible options would include size, space, locations, things like that. Those could all be elements of that feasibility study. So the question would be, if we aren't ready to have that for town meeting in November, the next scheduled town meeting would be in April. So that would kind of be the town meeting route, unless there were to be a special town meeting for some reason. And maybe that's possible, but I don't think it's in the cards right now. Another possibility might be to ask that some of the American Recovery Act, the pandemic funding, be allocated toward a study like this. And so we have this ARPA committee that's been meeting. And one of the things that I had suggested to the committee was to consider some amount of money, somewhere between $150,000 and $300,000, I think is what was recommended, as a possible use of the pandemic relief funds, as a very reasonable use of the pandemic relief funds. And so I just wanted to bring this up. So if people think that that's an interesting idea, it would be worth reaching out to members of the ARPA committee to share feelings about that. And then eventually the select board is the group that actually allocates those funds at the end of the day. So that's probably also worth reaching out to the select board at some point. But first, the ARPA committee is the one that's actively discussing now where those funds should go. So I would recommend that if people think that's a reasonable use of pandemic relief funds, to reach out to that group. I can share with anyone, contact information, or you can share it directly with the town manager, maybe, as another possibility on that one. The chair is Mary Ann Downing, as the chair of the committee. I'm actually the vice chair of that committee. So you can send me the notes as well, and I can share them with the ARPA group. So that's a possible funding source, if in partial or total, depends on kind of what the recommendation would be. That might help on the timing issue. And even if we weren't finished in November, maybe that would get us going on the feasibility study. If not, then I think we're talking about April of 2023 town meeting for kind of the next step feasibility study. And my only concern with that is just it's time. Time keeps marching out. So that's kind of what I wanted to share with the group. It wasn't on the agenda for the last meeting, so I didn't want to talk about it. It is on the agenda for this meeting, so I brought it up. The other thing you should all be aware of also is that Human and Elder Services is thinking about other requests that could be made to the ARPA group for funds that could be allocated. And I think, Jean, we said in the May meeting, I think is the goal to be able to share some thoughts on that. In other town departments are doing the same thing in terms of saying, hey, we think this would be a really good use of some of those pandemic relief funds. So that's kind of what's going on. I launched 3 placeholders. One was for the feasibility study. One was for some kind of active services now to take place to reach out to seniors as pandemic relief. And the third was the possibility of even allocating a more substantial amount of money toward the Next Generation Senior Center. That one probably is a much further reach than any of the other 2, but I'll put them out there.
Okay. Any questions of Mark on that, or Marilyn?
Mark, I just wondered, I know there's at least one town that got a whole new senior center funded through ARPA. Have we seen what they wrote for a proposal, and can we copy it?
No, the answer is no, and it would be great to see what it is.
But it might make it not look like such a far reach. It was my hope on it.
So one of the so all is reasonable. The one requirement of these pandemic relief funds is the money has to be spent by the end of 2023, or fully
Obligated?
Beyond obligated. But yeah, I mean, nominally it's for stuff that's going to be happening, shovels in the ground, payments before the end of 23, if I'm not mistaken, 2023. So,
but maybe we could fund a temporary expanded space if someone wanted to put a proposal together on that. Do you think?
I think all possible. I think ARPA, the way that they're looking at it now, and you're welcome to attend these meetings, they're public, they're on RCTV, is to, there's a list of criteria that's going to be used to make these evaluations, how many people it's impacting in the community, the timeline for it, is it a one-time expenditure, and can it be completed in the time frame required? So those are some of the evaluation criteria that are being looked at. And let's obviously say it offers strong pandemic relief. So, obviously things that are helping resolve some of the extra stress and strife that was created by the pandemic, is, one of the primary purposes. But we have $7.5 million, excuse me, we have $7.5 million remaining in the kitty. The final allocations, again, are going to be up to the select board, but the ARPA group is making recommendations on what should happen. There is going to be a request coming through to use, I think, $650,000 for relief on water rates going forward. So, there are some things that will impact the entire community that will go forward that way. And then there'll be a discussion of what are the community priorities after that, including a little bit of an outreach survey that is likely to take place, timing not yet exactly clear, but soon.
Okay. Thank you, Mark, for that update. I don't think we have to take any formal action on that. Well, now, scheduling, let me see, before we go into, well, let's schedule the dates, at least, next, 2 more meetings, and then we can see if there's any unfinished business. Okay. Okay, now we've been going every 2 weeks, and Wednesday's been the day. So it's 2 weeks from tonight. Is that available to people? I'm looking at members now. John Sasso has his hand up.
So this would be May 4th.
Yes.
May the 4th be with you. Absolutely.
So
Oh,
I am not available that night, but again, I'm just one.
is another day that week possible?
We are likely still involved in town meeting, starting May 2nd, definitely, I would think. And
Right.
possibly May 5th.
Possibly town meeting, May 5th.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be even going into May 9th.
All depends on how zoning goes, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So do we have a suggestion?
May 10th or 12th?
And the 10th is what day of the week? I don't have
Tuesday the 10th,
Tuesday.
Thursday the 12th.
I prefer Tuesday.
Yeah, I prefer Tuesday.
Yeah, that's better too.
My chorus is over by then, so Tuesday the
10th.
10th.
Did we say May 4th is a no? Because that was the date that UMass had asked about, proposed that date for the draft survey conversation.
So for me, there's actually a police and fire badge pinning ceremony that I will be at that evening. That I'm committed to. So for me, again, that's 4th is not possible.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I can't speak if UMass is going to be ready. I mean, I suppose they could give us the draft, and if they can't come to the meeting, we'll just give them our feedback afterwards.
Or if you folks are able to meet, I'm happy to send my feedback separately.
All right.
You want
Well,
to just try for the 10th, and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Okay.
And then for a subsequent meeting.
So it depends. June 1st, the library is available, I think. Kevin, even though he's on vacation, was booking the library while we were doing the meeting tonight. So I think he has that space. Again, I don't know about UMass. Maybe if we want to, have a forum on June 1st, I guess we could just either think it's going to be the 18th or the 1st, but does there need to be a second meeting if we're going to be doing the public forum? Could it be a 1 meeting month?
That's what we had done previously when there was the forum that counted as our scheduled meeting.
Can I suggest we may have a lot of the communication activities going on that really need to be a meeting as opposed to a forum kind of thing. That might be, we may be better off scheduling an extra time. If I can speak selfishly, we're better off booking time sooner than later.
What about the 25th, May 25th?
Is good.
So May 10th and May 25th.
Okay, anybody else?
Did we
I
skip a
think that
date
makes,
about
I
when we're
think that
gonna look
makes
at the
sense.
survey? Oh, sorry, the
Pardon me,
survey, were we gonna look at the survey at some, what was that
May,
date?
we're trying to see if May 10th would work. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna have to see if UMass is available. But the goal would be to at least have a draft from UMass that at least the committee could begin to review on May 10th.
Okay.
Okay. On the
And
10th?
do we think May 20, I'm sorry, May 25th, was that going to be at the library or was that going to be remote?
Well, the 25th is the second recalc meeting.
So that'd be remote.
Yeah.
Remote. Okay.
June 1st, but that is a good question. The next public forum, does it want to be in person? Does it want to be hybrid? Does it want to be over Zoom?
So the only comment I would make is that Middlesex County just moved back up into the medium rating on COVID.
Mm.
And I hate to say it, but I actually know a number of local colleagues suffering from COVID right now. I'm a little hesitant to schedule everything in person, but maybe we start in person with a hybrid option and adjust as needed.
I'd be all for doing it over Zoom for safety reasons and also to keep it as simple as possible since we've already done the in-person. If
But
the
see,
committee thinks it's okay to just go virtual.
See, I don't think Zoom is a good for, I mean, I'm judging by what happened with town meeting. I thought it was terrible.
But this is a little different than town meeting. I mean, we've done a lot of public forums over Zoom and had good results. I think it's easier for people to make the time to do
I'm
it.
talking about hundreds of people, you know. You haven't had a forum that I'm aware of that had that kind of numbers.
Well, we've had some pretty good numbers. I mean, you could set it up as, you know, people can submit comments in the chat. If it's a Zoom webinar, you can do Q&A. I mean, I guess that really points to what do we want to get out of this next public forum? I guess that's really the big question before us. Who do we want to reach? And I know we want to get feedback, but
I would hope that we would get more people who aren't, you see, how to say, more of a range of adult ages.
And if I could throw my 2 cents in, I would hope we get more of representation from the portion of the elder population that doesn't currently take advantage of the services that are available because they can't or don't want to either. But I think getting their input, that's where my original concern came, was that we were targeting people that we knew of, which is largely focused on the ones that do participate. And I was worried about the others. And I also question, though, whether there might not be an important chunk of those that are not so Zoom oriented and adept at the skills. On the other hand, they're also probably the more fragile part of the population, and I would not want to expose them. I too know colleagues who have COVID. And of course, Amy, you've tested positive and shared that with us. It's all over the place.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in a bubble, I think, till for a long time, but I like the hybrid option. That way people can
would- yeah,
decide.
I was going to suggest that we start off with a hybrid, and if things are worse, then we can all,
yep.
do
I love
Zoom.
that idea.
Because I actually was concerned that the one at the library, last public hearing, is almost very few people were wearing masks, and that was including almost none of the older people that were there, except for myself.
And I could just say, like, I wear masks all the time and even at work. And I happened to go away and we were outside and I was with people I know who had tested before, but it happened so quickly. And that just really scared the heck out of me. Because even with the other one, I'm totally vaccinated, so I hate being like that, but it's definitely opened my eyes. I
Okay,
think the Heisman's great.
is there any other business before us? Make sure. I'm seeing no hands. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I have a
Okay.
second. Okay,
Second.
it's been moved and adjourned. There's no discussion. I'll take a roll call. So Ron Asini,
Yes.
hey, Nora Bucko,
Yes.
Mark Doxer,
Yes.
John Parsons,
Yes.
John Sasso,
Yes.
and John O'Neill, yes. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Oh, Jean is raising her hand.
Jean.
Oh, or you, what?
I just got an email from UMass that they can do June 1st.
Oh,
Great.
great.
Oh,
All right.
breaking news.
All right, I'll be sending well, Amy, I'm gonna get feedback from you on the back of the card as soon as you can, and I understand you're juggling and you've got COVID.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm back in action.
All right,
I will check it tomorrow.
all right, I'll revise it and I will send the draft to you and John and Jean and the other John and Kevin and next door neighbors and
Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice.
we'll get sign off on that in a couple of days and I'll get the printer moving on it. Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. John Parsons,
you,
can you and I
everyone.
connect separately on your topic?
Anytime you'd like to.
I've been
Thank you.
pushing this.
Do you want me to not end the meeting or do you want me to hit end? Will I disconnect you guys if I hit end?
Can you make me host for a minute? And I promise I will close it out
Absolutely.
afterward and John and I can talk for a minute.